welcome back to the channel. My name is Aditi and today I am playing with the new Release Succulents die set as well as the Terrarium die set. I am going to be building a beautiful scene with all of these dies on my card, creating a lot of dimension. So die cutting can be fun. Sometimes it can be a little strenuous when it comes to how do I color the dies after I have cut them. Today I'm showing you an easy way out. So what I have done is I have die cut all of these elements from the Succulents die set on watercolor cardstock. And first up, I am actually gluing the layers and assembling them. So I am going to assemble each succulent just following the layering guide and glue the 2, the 3, 5, 6, how many ever layers each one comes with. I am just using my liquid adhesive and putting all these layers together. It is not very difficult, especially with the bigger succulents. It is all about just aligning the triangles and following the order as mentioned in the layering guide. Now you might wonder that after assembling, how am I going to color that? And that's exactly what I want to show you. Sometimes dies like these can be fun to use when just watching TV, watching something on YouTube or listening to a podcast where all you need to do is unwind and die cut all the layers and put them together and store them in a box. That's something that I oftentimes love to do when I get a die set. Just die cutting multiples of these, assembling them and storing them in a box. Now when that is done, today I am going to be using these Altenew watercolor brush markers to color these elements. There are multiple mediums that you can use and you can use any watercolor medium that you have in your stash. All I am doing is adding pigment from the brush marker and then using my water brush pen to move it around to create this intensity between the light, the dark shades, creating the shadow and the depth that I want. So for the first succulent, I am using a blue and just doing that, adding the pigment and then using my water brush pen to move it around and to get all of that flowing. I do make sure to apply pigment on the sides of the die because I don't want to leave any white marks. And as we get along, I am actually going to make this more simple and easier by changing up the technique slightly. So I am quickly finishing up with my blue succulent, and once that is done, I am moving on to the next one. And here you see what I did was just squirted out a little pigment and added that all over the succulent, and then I'm going in with my water brush pen to move that around, and where I need another shade I am just dropping in pigment there and blending it and adding shades of colors. This worked out to be much easier than doing it petal by petal. I thought this was easy to just squirt pigment all over and then move it around and add shading. So I repeat that same process on the third one using shades of green. And for the last one, I actually take it one step ahead. I add the pigment from the watercolor brush pen and then I use my spray bottle here and spray some water. What that does is it just helps the pigment to already start flowing and I don't have to do controlled movements with my water brush pen. So I started with a yellow ochre and then I'm just going in with green to add the shading, depth and dimension, and with that my elements are colored in. I am using the new release fern die here and I've die cut a pink cardstock with it, and then I have used gold cardstock to die cut the terrarium outline, added a piece of acetate backing to it and used black glitter cardstock for the base of it. So just using liquid glue, I am gluing my pink card panel to my A2 card base. And initially I wanted to make this more of a pop-up card, but what ended up happening was that my entire element was too heavy for the pop-up element to stand through. So I change it as I go along. But when it comes to my layering, I am just cutting down one of these longer succulents so I can create two out of one. And that's another thing that you can always do. Trim your die cuts to get more out of one single one. And I am just playing with the composition. So there is no rule here. You will see me just fiddle around, play around with it, uh, manipulating it, deciding what I like. I then go back and change that because I feel like that's not working for this one. I am using pieces of washi tape to hold elements together in place, and then I remove them all. I go back and add the other layers until I am happy. So, a composition is something that you really need to spend a little time on. Play with it, move around the elements until it looks pleasing and appealing to your eye. That's what I am trying to reach for, and it is a process, and that's the reason why I intentionally left that in this video, so you can see that it does take me time to really settle down in on one particular composition. Once I'm happy, I use liquid glue and just glue down all of these elements. I do use um, I don't use any foam tip because there is dimension already when I glue layer over layer. And I still go ahead and use washi tape at the back just to make sure everything stays intact. So now I am replacing that pop-up. So I've added foam tape behind that entire element, and I am adhering down that to my card base. And then I realized that I forgot white splatter. So in this video, it is all about experimenting and exploring and showing you how sometimes some things don't work out as you started off with. So I remove the top element, I go back in and splatter white ink. Once that's dry, I use liquid adhesive and glue down that topmost element to the base and set that aside to settle in. So with that, now I needed a sentiment, so I've gone back to an older set, Gilded Greetings, and I use the effortless artistry paper and die cut the sentiment from that. And I'm using again liquid adhesive, and I just glue down the sentiment on my card base. I use this because these come with some bigger words, and I thought for this card something like this works wonderfully. So with that done down in place, this card is complete, and I hope this has given you some ideas of building scenes with your dice. And I hope leaving my intentional mistakes or happy accidents gives you ideas on kind of not giving up and just pursuing what you started on with. I love reading your comments, so do leave your comments down below and do share your creations on the Meraki Facebook group. All the details are in the description box below. Until the next time, take care and bye bye.